The search for product market fit is not an academic exercise in your garage. It starts there with some inspiration, but it's getting out there and working with people.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the How to Scale a Business podcast. My name is Hector Santisteban. I am your host for today. Our special guest is Mr. Keith Lucas. He is the author of Impact, a book about how to do exactly that and make an impact with your life and your business. I'm excited to dig in today. So Keith, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be here.
Take us into your world. We're going to dive into the book and all the things that are in there. But you've been helping a lot of people and you've sort of made it your mission to impact people, for no pun intended. Catch us up on some of the key stops along the way, though, and then we'll dive into a little bit of.
Yeah, happy to. I started my career as an engineer, aerospace, but then software engineer. Worked in Silicon Valley for a long time, almost 30 years working in or with startups in one way or another. Most notably, I was at Roblox early on for about 10 years. I started as head of operations, but eventually became chief product officer and chief technology officer. I have, for the last 7-8 years, been an advisor to startups, and that advising and my experiences building teams led to my book, Impact. And that's what I do now. I try to help entrepreneurs build teams that can create, innovate, and solve problems over and over again.
I love that. And I'm sure my 7-year-old who's spent many an hour on Roblox is grateful for your work there. And when you look back on your time, are there stories, are there turning points that really made a difference in, because so many people might take what you've done in your experience and ride off to the sunset and say, I'm done, sayonara, or go into the obscurity, if you will. But you sort of have taken the opposite approach and you sort of, found a reason to take your experience and take what you've learned and now are sharing that with startups and lots of startups. And what is it that made you want to take that route?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. It's all really, to be honest, a sense of giving back. I've been incredibly fortunate in life to have met certain people, to have been given certain opportunities, to have the wherewithal to make good on those opportunities. And it's really driven by a sense of helping. I think I've always been a bit of a teacher in a way. It's informed how I've mentored, how I've coached when I've been building teams. But really, I'm motivated every day by helping founders be more successful.
It seems like this, you mentioned gratitude, and a lot of people think that that's just an airy-fairy sort of concept, or that it doesn't have any real practical business application. In your mind, what do you see as the sort of the benefits or maybe the payoff, for lack of a better term, of bringing gratitude into your life or your business or your organization?
Another great question. I'm going to quote Tony Robbins here, and I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. He talks about how life is whatever you focus on. And so in a selfish way, the reason for gratitude is that if you're focusing on that, you're focusing on all the things you have and what you should be grateful for. And if you're focusing on what you don't have, you're just going to be miserable. So there's a selfish reason for it. I think there can also be I know there's a performance reason for it on teams. One is to always be grateful to the people around you for the work that they do, particularly if you're a leader. I always have made a habit of thanking people for their contributions. I know it always meant a lot to me when I got thanked, and so I always made that a practice. I think it's motivating. It's just good to be seen doing work and doing good work. I think there's also a sense that a team in general that operates from gratitude and has that sense of it is going to be more optimistic. And optimism, I've found, is also a key to being entrepreneurial. It's really hard to be a pessimistic entrepreneur. You can be paranoid in a good, healthy way of all the things that could go against you, so you can plan appropriately, but you still need to be optimistic. And I think gratitude can lead to optimism.
Yeah, I remember one time talking to a team member, and she mentioned, she's like, "You are the only," she called me a boss. I don't like thinking myself as a boss. But like she said, "You're the only boss who ever thanked me for my work." And I go, "Really?" For me, to your point, it just seemed like something natural, something I enjoyed. Maybe I had good managers or leaders coming up, as I was, growing in the business world. And I could see the tangible difference in her output, right? I mean, she worked harder, she was more attentive, and so perhaps some people can see it as this airy fairy thing, but it does result in real tangible outputs.
Absolutely. And if I can build on that, one of the keys to coaching that I talk about in my book is the alignment of personal purpose with the purpose of the role or the company. And I can share in a minute a personal story on that. But when you align these things, you really build on motivation. When someone identifies, for example, that the work they're doing is not only contributing to the team, it's also helping them grow as an individual, it's also helping potentially lead to career advancement and other things, maybe other things they want in life. And that's really empowering and inspiring. And that's also where the connection to an inspiring mission that a team has also plays a role in that kind of alignment. So when you thank someone, you're really tapping into that personal motivation where they're connecting their effort to the impact of the team and getting excited about it.
Yeah, one of my favorite books as I was, getting into business and sort of growing as a leader was called The Purpose Economy. And it sort of talked
Mm,
about how people have different levels of purpose, right? You have a personal purpose, or you could have one for yourself. You have a relational purpose, for your team or your family, or even sort of a societal purpose. And really knowing and understanding our team members or even our organization's purpose at a deeper level, or even just having clarity around that, seems to provide so much for the organization, for the individual, for the team, because it, like you said, it provides that sort of guiding light or sort of a North Star that everybody's heading towards.
exactly. If you're open to it, I'm happy to share a personal story where it made a huge difference in my life.
Please do.
When I was transitioning from, say, leading, I don't know, a handful of people to tens of people, and it was becoming really an effort. It's a common transition. It is actually the transition that my book is about. And when I was doing that, as I said, it was becoming stressful. And for me, I was not operating in the most constructive way. I'm really achievement oriented in sort of a get stuff done way, not in terms of accolades, but just get stuff done. And that drive to get stuff done and have a team getting stuff done, I was fairly intense. And that was demoralizing to some people. And so I'm grateful to my boss at the time for getting me a really capable coach who helped me align what my role needed and what the company needed with what I wanted. And he really got to know me. He really understood what I was about, where I wanted to go in life, what was important to me. And what was important to me was leadership. I ultimately wrote a book on it, but it's been really a key thing in my whole life is just really thinking about leadership. And I wanted to be a good leader. And he tied that behavior that was demoralizing, he cast it as an impediment to my own personal goals and that I was undermining my own progress in life. And the minute he did that, it really was an unlock for me. And it allowed me to apply that like achievement oriented, get stuff done energy to that. So it wasn't about like counting to five or whatever. It was just, oh, what would a leader do right now? And so it really, by aligning my goals and the goals in the role, by pointing out that alignment, it really transformed my leadership and the entire team benefited. So it really had an impact on the entire team's performance, to your point.
It seems like a lot of Well, I think it's new. It's come upon in the last maybe decade plus or so of this. What you're talking about, encouraging purpose. Being not necessarily the taskmaster, right, but sort of the servant leader. And then on the other side, there is to your point, the no nonsense, results oriented, get stuff done. Perhaps you might put those on separate poles, or some people might see those as opposites. You seem to connect the two. It seems like there is a connection between these things and a startup success, and there is a way to bridge that. How does that come together in your mind, or what is that bridge, if you will?
So that really is the essence of the challenge for a startup leader is you want to drive performance, which are things like focus and urgency and the pursuit of mastery. But you need to do that in a way that doesn't squash creativity and that doesn't squash problem solving and it doesn't squash intrinsic motivation, which is really, as Daniel Pink writes about, it's a real fuel for effort. So that really is the challenge is performance and entrepreneurial creativity. And it's not a balance. It is the way that I think about it and the bridge or the bridging idea is that it's an engineering problem. And it's a system of things that you do that allow you to drive performance and support creativity. And at the heart of it, just two simple things is this idea of aligned autonomy, which is having some clear things that people align to and a way of aligning that gets people headed in roughly the same direction without being overbearing. And the second part of that equation to aligned autonomy is another idea I call mission athletes. And this is the profile of people who really thrive and belong on an entrepreneurial team. They're mission oriented. They seek growth in their own personal capacity, like an athlete. They inspire and elevate their peers, and they improve in performance. So if you put those two things together, aligned autonomy and mission athletes, that's really the system that I've described in my book to connect these two of high performance and creativity.
It really, you talk about systems and engineering things, and I think that the most successful businesses, organizations, leaders, they do exactly that. They seem to sort of put things in place so that the culture, if you will, sort of perpetuates these things, that it's something that continues on and is not just coming down from the leader, but is actually being embodied by the team members. What do you find helps in being able to translate is the word that's coming to me right now, but to be able to get that ethos, to get that mindset from the leader into the rest of the team?
Yeah, so there's a number of components, but I'll try to give you the high level. We can start with something really simple. And this is usually a great starting point when I'm coaching because it really reveals a lot. It's also a great starting point for any leader when they're walking into a situation with a team to assess what's going on. And that's three questions. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And how do we know we're making progress? If you think about the what and the why, that covers a lot. Without a clear what, people will be unmoored. They'll be working on all sorts of things. Without a clear why, they won't really know how to amplify the what. They'll lack some motivation. And the measurement of making progress is a further refinement in aligning people around some clear goals. So if you are assessing a team and you can imagine like five people on this team, if they can't all say what they're doing, or maybe they can, but they don't know why, or maybe they know both of those, but they don't really know how they're measuring progress, you're not going to have any sort of speed and you're going to have reduced impact. So when I'm coaching a leader, I start with those, and that usually will lead into a number of details, but that's one of the places I start.
Yeah, I think it's so helpful for people to have clarity. 'Cause you mentioned that if they don't have that clarity, they don't know where to go, and then to your point, they're not as motivated to get there. But with those, they can, they can actually do that. When we get back from break, Keith, I'm curious. We've talked a lot about what I call general, not general, but timeless strategies, things that that you can implement in 2025 and 2035, 2045. I'm curious about some of the specific tactics that you are finding working right now, and also some of the mistakes that a lot of the startups that you're advising are making as well. And so we're going to get into that a little bit more right after this quick. Hey, y'all. Today's episode is brought to you by Amplify Media, and we are a podcast and content production company. Well, we like to think of ourselves as like the fractional media part of it. Because chances are, if you're listening to this, you probably have a product, a passion, a mission, a message, a service, something you're trying to get out to the world, but you might not have the time, the team, the tech skills to tell people about it. If that's the case, we can help. Go to amplifymedia.com. That's AMPLAFY media.com. So check the show note for the link. And with that, let's get back to Keith. So, Keith, one of the things that I really enjoy about bringing someone on like you is that you have a larger sample size of data that you're able to see outside of just one business. And so you're probably able to notice trends, commonalities, things that are similarities, if you will, things that are happening. And one of the biggest curiosities that I have are about the mistakes that a lot of startups find, because most oftentimes people are just out there winging it, if not, at first, and they're just doing what they think is obviously right. And a lot of times it takes someone like you who's been around the block a couple of times to say, hey, if you did this or if you adjusted this, you might see, some much better results. And oftentimes they're small changes or perspective shifts. Are there things that come to mind like that with at the startups that you work with, where you go in and you're like, man, if we just let's fix this and we'll see, some outsized returns, or if we just adjust this at the start, things would be so much better?
Yeah, there are. And I'll give you a handful of them. One common one that actually comes up a lot is I'll ask how we can accelerate time to market. And really, that's time in front of actual users. And I think that this is so critical in startups to get real world data from real world people about what they're doing. That the search for product market fit is not an academic exercise in your garage. It is starts there with some inspiration, but it's getting out there and working with people. So one of the most common things I do is come in and I try to accelerate how fast they're moving by maybe making the first release a lot smaller. And I gave one company that advice recently, and it's just been really helpful to them. Another common one is that, and it's surprising. I get it. I've been there, but it's surprising how long companies go without having three simple things, which is a clear vision of the world they want to see, a clear mission of what they're doing next to bring about that world, and a clear set of values that will determine values or standards of behavior that will determine who will get hired, promoted, and exited. And without those just three basic things, there is a lot of ad hocness to the team. But once you have those three things, it's not the ultimate, but it really is a leveling up. So that's the second thing. The third thing, one that I'm working with a company now on, is this idea that how to help companies realize that busy work isn't really the most important thing, that it's doing fewer things that really matter, things that feel existential, things that are directly connected with outcomes, things that are really most tied to having a large impact. Those matter a lot more than busy work. And it's a trap that I've fallen into and everyone falls into, of doing a lot of busy work and forgetting what really matters. So those are the like three things that come up a lot.
Yeah, the audiobook that I'm listening to right now is Cal Newport's, I think, most recent one. It's called Slow Work, and or Slow Productivity, one of the two. But it talks about exactly that we're so caught up in this Slack driven world where it's all about busy, busy, busy and doing that it comes oftentimes at the expense of what's actually important. And it sort of leads me to the last thing that I'm curious about, or last kind of topic that I'd love to get into, and that's sort of the tactics. Because startups are starting up in a environment that is where the tech is evolving, the AI is evolving, and the economy and policies. I mean, there's so many things that are moving and constantly shifting. What are you finding is helping startups to succeed despite the sort of rocky waters, or all these currents that seem to be going and pushing in all these different ways? How have you found startups to be able to adjust for things like that?
I'll give you the example of one in particular I'm working with now that's doing a great job. The first thing they're doing, and to be honest, I don't have in depth knowledge of how they're doing it, but I know that they're doing it. It is one or two people working intensely with AI coding framework. They're both engineers, but they're using AI to greatly accelerate how, time to release a prototype, time to release a new feature, time to release an entire introductory product. And it has allowed a lot more rapid experimentation. So, that one tactical thing of leveraging AI and coding can allow a really small team to build stuff very quickly to get that really critical feedback from an outside audience. The other thing they're doing, which is more of a timeless thing, is that they are making really, I would say, quick and crisp decisions about adjusting based on what they're learning. So they started out with a vision of the world they wanted, and a mission and a sense of the product they wanted to build. And they built something and it had some initial success, but they realized it was not quite what they were going for. And so they pivoted just a little bit to do something very much aligned, but more powerful. And it's really exciting the path they're on now. So those two things, something new like AI coding, and something more timeless like iterating and making decisions and doing an intelligent adjustment to what you're doing. Those two things are really critical. And I think they're really helping this company be successful.
Yeah, it seems like the speed of creation, or let's call it the speed of innovation, and then the speed of iteration have accelerated. I don't even know how many fold. I mean, exponentially. And it seems like there is a group of businesses, entrepreneurs who are playing in those possibilities, and then some that are sort of shutting off from it. And I'm afraid that too many business owners are not aware of what's possible with sort of the tools and tech, whether it be AI or whatever it may be, because the things that we can do now weren't possible necessarily a year and a half ago, or they would have cost 4, 5, 10x more and taken, months or years. And now these same things can be done in days and weeks with a $20 sort of AI subscription. And
Yes.
I think it's important for business owners to sort of start opening up to what that might look like, because I don't think that they're giving it enough credence quite.
Yeah. And I think there are exceptions, but I think anywhere where AI touches, the people who embrace AI and leverage it are going to have a significant advantage over the people who don't. So I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah, I liken it to, we used to build huts with our hands, and now we use cranes and bulldozers. We're still building houses, and we're still engineering and architecting, but the level of what we can create is so much greater because of these tools. And I think to not utilize them, like to your point, puts that business at a huge disadvantage. As we round out here, I got two more questions for you, Keith. The first is, if people want to find about you, about the book, get more involved with what you're doing, where's the best place for people to go?
So the best place is to go to my website, keithvlucas.com. And that you'll learn about me, about my advising, about my book. And you can also follow me on LinkedIn at kvlucas.com or kvlucas on LinkedIn. And I post regularly articles and other things from my book and things I'm learning as an advisor.
Great follow on LinkedIn for sure. And we'll link up the book and all those websites in the show notes for you listeners, as always. My last question, Keith, is in your opinion, what is the secret to scaling a business?
Oh, that's you saved the easiest for last. But in terms of scaling the team, it really is having a foundation of culture, which is a foundation of a set of behaviors that are successful on your team. These are your values, and a really crisp and clear idea of the kind of people that amplify your team, the people you're going to hire, promote, and retain. These two factors, the behaviors you create, cultivate, and the people you hire and promote and retain, these are foundational to your culture. Without that foundation, it's hard to scale. But with that foundation, it's a lot easier to scale because you can create small groups and you can have a sense of how they'll operate because of that culture.